Okay, we're being asked to round 1010, and well, I'm just going to read this as number 0.003442 to the nearest 1. So this is the nearest 1, so the number before it is tenths. Tenths is it's less than 5, so it's 4, 3, 2, or 1, or 0. And so that tells us to round down. So we keep the 0, everything else after becomes a 0. Okay? Now, everything else after the ones place becomes a 0. So we don't bother writing the decimal point. Okay? So this becomes a 0. Everything else after becomes a 0. So don't do what I'm about to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, because we're being asked to round to the nearest 1, we don't bother with the decimal. We don't bother with all that. Okay? So just write that.
Yay. Yay. Yay.
Okay. Next question. Round 282,447 and 48,944. What is that? Thousands, 10,000, millionths. Okay, so millionths. We're being asked to round this number to the nearest 100. The nearest 100 is this 4. So the number before it, which is also 4, tells us to round down. Okay? Remember, if it's 4 or lower, round down. 5 or higher, round up. So this 4 stays as a 4. Everything else after becomes zeros. So 2 zeros, then we have our decimal, so we don't need to write the decimal. So 0, 0, decimal. That's it.
I said yeah. I said oh yeah.
Okay, round this to the nearest 100. The nearest 100 is the 4. The tens place just before it tells us whether we're going to round up or round down. And it's 4 or lower, so we round down. It's 3, so it's lower than 4. We round down. So the 4 stays. Everything else after becomes zeros. So the 3 and 9 becomes 0, 0, and that's it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, round to the nearest 1. The tenths, it's 5 or higher. In fact, it is 5. It tells us to round the 9 up. The 9 rounds up to a 10, right? So when it becomes a 10, this is 0, and we carry the 1 to the 7, and that becomes an 8. Okay? Did you get that? So the 9 becomes a 10, so we have to carry the 1 over to the 7. All right? So the 9 is now a 0, and the 1 gets carried over to the 7, gets added to the 7, and it becomes an 8. And so we have 1,180.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, round 1,004 and 10,065 hundred thousandths to the nearest 1. So this is the ones place. This is the tenth, and the tenth tells us to round down, to round the ones to it's the place just before the ones. So it's 4 lower, we round down, so we round down. So the 4 stays a 4, and everything else after becomes zeros. But we have the decimal place there, so we don't bother writing anything after it. So 1004.
I said yeah. I said oh yeah.
All right, round this number 4,807 and 681,091, and this is thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millionths. So 681,091, 10 millions to the nearest 100. All right, so here's the hundreds place, the place just before it, which is the tens. Now I'm going to look up here, sorry. Here's the hundreds place. The place just before it, which is the tens, tells us to round up or down, and it's a 0, so we're going to round down. So the 8 stays. Everything else after becomes zeros up until the decimal point. So just 0, 0, like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, round 1,003 and 999 hundred thousandths. Yeah, thousands, 10,000, 100,000s, that's right, to the nearest 1. So here's our ones place. The place before it, the tenths, is a 0, so it tells us to leave the ones alone, and everything else after becomes a 0, but we just have decimal points, so that's just all gone. So 1,003. Okay, we have time for one more example. Round 1,022 and 51,139 hundred thousandths to the nearest 1. So this is the 1. The place before it is the tenths, is a 5 or higher. Since it's a 5, it tells us to round this up to a 3. Everything else after becomes a 0. But since we have the decimal place, we don't write it. So 1,023, and that's it.
Oh yeah.
And that's it for the examples. Have a good day. Stay tuned for Level 3 examples.